Hello, listeners. This Kinocast contains spoilers for Dune 2021, so if you haven't seen that, go check that out right now and come back to this video later. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kinocast. Today, I want to spread two good messages to everyone. Message number 2 is you are loved. You are very great. You are the most important thing on earth. But there's one more important thing, number 1. And that's the Mets, baby. The Mets. Oh yeah, I love the Mets. Home run, baby. The Mets. Oh yeah,
The
I
Mets,
love the
baby!
Mets.
Number one, it's the Mets, baby!
Yeah, the Mets. Yeah. Okay. Jokes
That's a
aside.
good joke.
Thank
That's a
you.
good
Thank
bit.
you.
I like that bit.
It's been stuck in my head for a week, so
The
I'm
Mets,
very proud
baby!
of my
Yeah, that's...
execution.
Yes. 10
But
out of 10.
welcome to the Spice Must Flow cast. We're talking about the 2021 version of Doom.
I'm sorry, I'm not done yet. Funnier than the bit itself, which is already very funny to me, is the, non-Americans doing these, baseball jokes. It's just it's somebody who is an American and has heard stuff like this unironically my whole life. It's still very funny, but it's even funnier when a Dutch person is doing it.
Thank you.
Anyways, doing your mom.
Well, that's it. We peaked. That's it. Episode done.
Repeat.
God damn.
Bye, everyone.
But yeah. Um.
It finally came out.
Yeah. I remember back in 2020, I was getting a haircut. I was on my phone, and then I saw Doom delayed to 2021. I was like, bruh. It was like a month
Yeah.
or so before it came out.
Yeah.
Where were you when Dune was delayed? I got phone call. Men on other end say Dune is kill. I
No.
say
No. Yeah, this is the one I was waiting for last year. I just know it's coming. I know that delay it took a long time for it to happen, but I was like, I know it's coming. I know it's coming. And we hadn't seen anything from it yet. So I'm like, this movie is supposed to come out in a couple months. We haven't seen a single thing from it. It's gonna get delayed, and it did, and I was very sad.
And then the trailer came out, and then the trailer wouldn't stop playing every time I go to the cinema. I think I've seen
Yeah,
this like
yeah.
70 times.
I purposely stopped because they would always play it first in it would be the first trailer for the movies I was seeing. So after the second time I stopped. I waited to go into the theater until the trailers were done. I'm like, I don't want to see a ton from this movie, and I don't want this trailer seared into my brain.
Oh, the trailer is pretty much in my brain. I never watched the second
Yeah.
trailer. They didn't even play the second trailer over here.
I'm not sure if I've seen it. I probably
Because
did, but I didn't make a habit of
it's a
going
very
back to watch
interesting
it.
trailer.
Yeah.
If the Dune trailer wasn't playing, then the No Time to Die trailer was playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
said it was very. As the person who saw the second trailer, is very interesting how they were trying to sell the movie because it was very clearly meant more for general audiences.
yeah.
Hmm.
And just very clever editing to make it seem like there was a bigger conclusion in this movie than there really was.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful because I was like,
Classic Warner Brothers. But yeah, it's a funny thing because it released on HBO Max last Friday. But I watched it a month ago because for some reason in European theaters, it came out on September 16th, I think.
Yeah, that's insane.
I've
A
seen this
full
film,
month before America.
I've seen this film over a month ago. And then I rewatched
Yeah.
it today on my TV,
Okay.
4K version. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX last Thursday.
I
The first showing that I could.
I was going to see it on IMAX, but I was on my way to the train. I arrived at the train station, and suddenly
Okay.
every single train in my country wasn't riding because of a communications error.
What?
So
That's insane.
I had to cancel my IMAX tickets. And
Wow.
I just went to my local cinema. And I
That
still had a
sucks.
great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not see it in IMAX.
Mm.
Instead, I went to the Alamo Drafthouse and just made a big fancy night out of it because
Sweet.
might as well. It's the next
Yeah.
best thing to IMAX, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, we don't have any Alamo Draft houses here, unfortunately. In fact, well, I kind of live in two cities. In the main one that I live in, like work here, we only have Regal theaters. In the other one I live in, we have Regal and AMC, and I normally go to the AMC up there because it's got comfy recliner chairs, and they also have a bunch of the up in Charlotte, they have some of the like nice dinner theaters where they bring you food and stuff. We
Yeah,
don't have any of that here. We have a few Regal theaters, and that's it, and one IMAX, and one RPX.
no,
Um,
I'm from like DC suburbs. That's where I'm living right now. So there's so many movie theaters around here.
yeah,
Like so many options that I have. Half the time when I think about seeing a movie, I'm like, which one do I
Well,
even go to? 'Cause
the
they're all
yeah,
Netherlands
expensive.
is very small, so I got a lot of movie theaters surrounding me. I got
mm,
50 minutes cycling distance. I
wow,
got an IMAX, like what, 20, 40 minutes with the train.
yeah.
I go one in Amsterdam, a special one called Lab 111. It shows classic movies. It takes me about an hour. That's a pretty good one. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
there's
mean,
such
I
a
would,
there's such a handful of cinemas over here. I love it.
yeah. Yeah, I live in the suburbs, basically like a medium-sized city, and so everything's pretty centrally located. We got a couple highways running through, so not everything. Most things are somewhat close to that, so you just zip on places. But the IMAX theater is 30 seconds from my work. I could probably walk there
Nice.
in a minute if I wanted to. So I'm about 20 minutes from my home, but it's right next to my work. So I'll normally
Sweet.
just I'll stay at work a couple extra hours until 7 when it starts, and
Yeah,
it's a sweet deal.
the 15-minute cinema cycling cinema, the one that's closest to me is also pretty close to my school. So
Mm.
one time I actually just like I was out of school pretty early, so I did a two-parter. Well, not two-part. I mean a double feature with How to Train Your Dragon 3 and Glass.
Very interesting.
Very
Very
interesting.
interesting double feature. Yeah.
Yeah, because they played back to back, so I might as well just buy tickets.
Funny.
Well, I mean, let me tell you about the weirdest double feature I've been to. Uh, well, it's not like an actual double feature, but I bought tickets back to back. It's The Exorcist and Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Okay. That's
Talk about a
yeah.
whiplash.
Yeah, that beats mine, which was still weird, which was John Wick 2 and the Lego Batman back to back.
That sounds
That
like a
was a
pretty great
solid
one.
night. It was pretty
That
good.
is an
It
amazing
was
night.
tonal whiplash, but it was great.
So the only place, there was a drive-in theater not far from where I grew up, and that was the only place that did double features. But they usually they either tried to make it like two whatever blockbusters were out that were like similar enough, like say maybe a
Hmm.
kids movie and like a Marvel movie, or they would do like theme nights, and that was the only time I went was a theme night.
Mm, nice.
Sweet. All right. That's cinema
Dune.
talk. Let's move over to some people
Don't
who sniff spice. The spice smells
So
flow. He's talking about the
somebody say this
spice
director's name
revolution.
so I don't butcher it again because I
Denis
always
Villeneuve.
butcher it. Thank you.
Then you will know.
So I was saying it wrong for years, and I'm not doing that again.
Come on. Come on,
So
don't be shy. Say it.
no,
Say it.
I'm not doing
Come on.
it. Villeneuve's movies are well, okay, no, this is a Villeneuve movie. Like it is. It's one of his films. It's not much like Blade Runner 2049. It's not compromised in any way, like him making the jump to making heavy quotations, quote unquote, blockbusters and franchise films is not nothing's changing between that and his other stuff, Sicario, Prisoner's Enemy, etc. In fact, Sicario is the biggest. I'd argue that this movie was totally a lot more similar to Sicario than anything else, including Blade Runner 2049. Just by the sense of tension you felt the whole time. Like it was a master class in building tension. Like something's coming. You know it's coming and you know it's coming. And it's just like edge of my seat the whole time. And that most closely reminds me of
I
Sicario.
actually, I actually think this movie is very similar to Blade Runner 2049. It's just, it's a 2 hour long, well, 2.5 hour long cinema science fiction slow burn. Well, not slow burn, but it's a grand
It
scope
is. It's a
film.
slow burn.
I wouldn't really call it slow burn because slow burn I associate with like actually Sicario and stuff. I think it's just a blockbuster, big scope film, science fiction, and it's not really
It
like
takes like
general. It's
yeah,
it's special science fiction,
yeah.
It's got something hanging to it that I really enjoy.
I mean, I can count on one hand the number of films I've seen, and obviously, this is due in part to two things. It's to the book itself and to just how well written the movie is and how well it fits these things in. Is I've rarely seen a movie with such a rich lived in universe. Like I'm interested in every aspect of everything going on, and it all feels which is monumental for a book that was so influential. Everything feels distinct and unique in this film,
Yeah,
from an aesthetic level.
just to cut it, has anyone in here read the book?
I have
I have
not.
not.
No.
I tried reading it. I'm like, what, 50
Too
pages
dense.
in or something.
Yeah, I will read it after the second part of the movie comes out. I've gotten to this place of, especially with book movies, of wanting to experience the source material after the adaptation if I haven't
Yeah.
already.
Well, I mostly got spoiled for most of the shit because I already watched the David Lynch version.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've seen that in high school, but the only thing I remember from that is Kyle MacLachlan riding a giant sandworm. I don't remember a single thing from that film.
The spice melange. He wants the spice.
I said I have not seen the original David Lynch. I have seen South Park parody the original
Yes.
David Lynch movie, but I have not seen the original movie itself. So honestly, yeah, I was kind of just going in completely blind, only armed with some knowledge I kind of had offhand from some people I know who have read the books and kind of
Mhm.
told me what to expect. But yeah, otherwise it was completely blind, and
Mm.
Someday,
it was an interesting experience.
there's another adaptation of Dune, and it's the 2000 sci-fi limited series.
I wanted to bring that up. I never see anyone talk about
I
those.
need to watch it. I need to take one for the team and watch it.
People refer to Dune as a book, an 80s movie, and now the new one. And
And there's-
I've never seen a single person reference this miniseries, which
also,
adapts the first three
It's
books over
well,
two
that is also
miniseries.
most sci-fi miniseries from the 2000s. No
Fair.
one watched them, so no one talks about them.
Well, here's the thing. It remained one of the Sci-Fi Channel's, like it has always remained one of the Sci-Fi Channel's highest watched, highest rated anything that's aired on that
Interesting.
channel.
Wow. They also
like
have
it's
like a sequel series. I think they made Children. of Dune.
there's two miniseries. The
With
first one
James
adapts the
McAvoy.
first book. The second one adapts the second two books with James McAvoy.
Yeah, he's in it.
Wait,
Whoa, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So it's like, yeah, I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad because nobody talks about them. It's like they don't. I've been meaning to make a post in the group about it, and I probably
re-released it
will
on-
before this podcast airs.
They re-released it on Blu-ray, so maybe I can
Yeah.
download buy a good copy, 1080p copy.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if there's any value to it.
So I'm looking up all the info now. Okay, no, they actually have Dune, then Children of Dune, and then there's another Dune. Apparently, I forgot the name. It was one with James McAvoy.
Hmm.
Where was it? Where can I find it? Well, I can't find it. But what you also have is a documentary about Alejandro Jodorowsky, who wanted to make
that's
a Dune
right.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dude sucks. I think he's just a massive pretentious douchebag, and he's very bitter, so he'll dog on like this movie any chance he gets
Yeah.
because somebody else got to adapt it. Because
Yeah.
his one thing has been, well, I didn't get to do it, but it's
think-
unadaptable, so
I
no
think
one
his
will ever get to
version-
do it. And
Was supposed to be 7 or 14-hour long movie.
Which
Yeah.
sounds about right.
it would have been a very different take too, very psychedelic. Which what I've heard is that the book can get that way as well. So it's not that it would have been an incorrect take, but I know this very sleek, brutalist version that Villeneuve gave us is very different than what he would have done. So I think he's upset about that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I run into the people that are like, well, this guy should have gotten to make his movie. It would have been incredible. This new one sucks. Why didn't they let him do it? And I'm like, you're stupid.
I once read an interview that he was so happy to see David Lynch's version because David Lynch fucked up.
Yeah.
It was basically vindication, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I really know outside of I heard everyone rave about the documentary itself was I knew they were going to get Pink Floyd to do the music, which I mean,
wow,
doesn't
that's
surprise
actually
me.
that's actually pretty decent because
Well, and I know that's why the
Toto-
first trailer specifically uses the Pink Floyd song Eclipse in the trailer. It's like a
Toto
reference to that.
Interesting.
Toto did the soundtrack for the Lynch.
Did they really?
Yeah, they did. It's actually
That's
pretty
very
based.
funny. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I think it'd have to be a different version of the film than the one we got here, but I do like the idea of like a acclaimed 80s band or singer just taking it, just doing the whole soundtrack or something. I think that's a lot of fun for a project like this. Not something that this movie was missing at all.
I want Sting to do the soundtrack for the second one. He just shows up.
Why did you think that? Because I just thought that. Was Sting in the original? Is there some connection to Sting? Okay, that's why I was thinking that. I was like, that'd be really random if we both just randomly thought that Sting should do the music. Yeah, but no, I haven't read the book, but I've been paying attention to this movie since it was announced because I don't know or care how basic this opinion may be, but Villeneuve is probably my favorite working director currently.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like just based on sheer volume of films that are all in my mind 9.5 out of 10s, like, and that's just because I don't really give a film a 10 out of 10. Like they're every film I've seen of his, which is everything but Incendies, is, I'd argue, a masterpiece. Definitely one of my favorite movies. No other director, there's films out there I like more, but no other director has that many films that I hold in that high regard. I think he's definitely my favorite. So I've been paying attention to this project since the beginning, and it definitely had a lot to live up to in my mind. I've always been confident in whatever this man would do, so that wasn't really a risk. Especially after 2049, like, he already proved that he can take uh, a white whale, something basically unmakeable, and make it. But it lived up completely for me. Like, it felt like one of his movies. It was a very rich sci-fi film. None of it was too slow for me. Now, you rarely have a problem with that, so I can see some people thinking the first hour was too slow. But an interesting thing with this film is that when that switch flips, when things start quote unquote happening, when that switch flips, it doesn't stop for the whole movie. Like, it hits go and it's go the rest of the time. There's really little to no downtime after that.
Yeah. It's weird because it's like I did think it did feel very long, and I don't necessarily have a problem with it. And I kind of knew to expect that. Yes, it was slow, and yeah, it definitely took its time setting up the pace, but I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily.
I don't know either.
Here's the funny thing.
It was just
when I was watching it in cinemas, I was like, okay, this is going on too long, and it was literally the end. It literally ended there when I thought that.
That's I remember funny. At some point, I think it was right after Duncan, Idaho meets his end. My girlfriend turned to me, is like, this should be over soon, right? And I was like, I don't think so. I think we still have a bit to go. And that was kind of the first point where I was like, yeah, this is definitely the first time in a long time of movies were kind of gotten to the point where it's like, man, how much more is this? Not necessarily in the sense that I'm bored, but I'm also just like, man, I feel like we have covered a lot of ground already. How much more of this do we have? I think the other thing is I wasn't sure, especially because we have all these flash forwards and these visions of the future. Part of me is like, is this all things we're going to see in this movie? And if so, damn, how much long is there? And if not, how much of this is just set up for the next one?
Yeah.
As someone who's not familiar with the source material.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
I forgot what I wanted to say.
Let me know if you remember. Just stop me.
Yeah.
So there's for this movie to work is a somewhat deconstruction of the hero's journey, of the Messiah trope and all that, which it's supposed to be, because it gives you that stuff, but it's supposed to do more than that, right? It's supposed to examine other sides of there being this messianic figure. For it to do that, I think one of the things that it needed to and does really well is this idea of false prophecy. You're seeing glimpses of the future throughout the whole film, um, but it's not all correct. Some stuff doesn't come true. That's a really good way of kind of messing with the audience's expectations. I'm really curious to see how much of the things in the future we even see in the
Yeah.
sequel and how much we don't. And I think that's going to
wonder if
be
we'll
a big.
see. I wonder if we'll still see the bad CGI fight sequence with the big worm in part 2.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
That was kind of
No, I
embarrassing.
wonder. Yeah, I think it'll be a big part of the second movie and of how the movie kind of how it lands these two movies is the the prophecies of the future and the what's to come. I don't know. I think that's going to be even a bigger theme in the second movie, but I thought that's something this did really well here. Um, I can often get pretty bored by something that's filled with scenes of future prophecy or whatever, but it was always, I think it was a narrative device used in such a good and effective way in this film.
Yeah.
I I agree. I did like it. I think it was there was always fun things to back my mind whenever it's happened. It's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm excited to see, how this is going to tie back into the story. Well, especially more so afterwards, because for example, there are moments where he has visions of him learning about the Fremen from the one guy that he ends up killing in battle, and then once he
Jamis.
was dead, yeah, I was like, wait,
Yeah,
is that not gonna happen? Is that guy gonna
yeah,
come back? Again, as someone who's not familiar, I was like,
yeah,
okay, cool. So not it seems like maybe not everything we saw is actually gonna happen.
yeah.
So that's gonna be an even bigger fun guessing game in the future.
And I think I don't think a lot of people are seeing it that way because it is subtle. Not to say everybody's stupid, and I'm not, but it's that was a perfect way to end the film on. I think some people have complaints about this movie ending abruptly, ending in the middle, and yeah, it does end in the middle of the story. But I think it works
I
as a
think,
film on its own and as an ending on its own
I don't
because
know.
of that theme of you're ending on a prophecy, a part of the prophecy, a part of his future visions not coming true. You're ending on wow, this is different than how I saw in my visions. I think that's a really good
I
way to end it.
I kind of do agree that it can be seen as one film, but I don't know. The title card still says Part 1, and
It's not gonna.
the movie was marketed as just not Part 1. It was just marketed as
Yeah,
Dune,
Well,
and
it's
I was
and
it's kind of slimy.
I was very surprised. I was actually very surprised to see part one at the beginning of the movie with how coy they've been about, but we haven't greenlit a sequel yet, but
Yeah.
Villeneuve saying like, yeah, I made this movie anyways in mind with it needing a second part. Don't know
Also,
if I'll get it, but that's how I was going to make the movie anyway. So I
it
was very surprised to see them actually put part one at the beginning.
it does, yeah, like I said, it does like can tell a story that ends. But
Yeah.
in the other
Uh,
hand, it also feels like there's so much more to tell after that. So
yes.
yeah,
It's half a story. And like again, I don't think it works perfectly as its own film, and a lot of it I will only be able to judge I think when we get both parts.
yeah.
Um, I um, so yeah, I don't think it works as a fully standalone film. Um, but I don't necessarily view it needing to be in two parts as a like criticism against it either, like as a negative.
yeah,
Sure, each Lord of the Rings film probably ends a little better as its own movie than Dune, but you're not getting, there's still so much story to be told, and you know that. Like, obviously, their journey is literally unfinished.
Yeah.
So I don't think that should be viewed as a negative for Dune either. Like, it
so
can
Talking
it can
about
end without finishing its story.
I think what helps is like, yeah, with Lord of the Rings, obviously, is like because that was published as 3 books, and even though they all pretty much form one larger work, they were also kind of structured with their each like own beginning, middle, and end. And
Mhm.
that's something that's always a problem when you split up something that's one bigger work. And
Yes.
so I'm in a weird place with this movie because it's like I think a lot of my problems with it is just only because it's half a story, and so I'm
Mhm.
trying not to act like they are problems
Mhm.
because I'm still more interested to see how they're gonna follow up with it before I
Here's
can
my
really finalize.
here's my biggest problem with the film is that we're probably gonna have to wait 2 or 3 years for part two
Yeah.
because they didn't
Yeah,
shot
I'm
this
exactly.
really
back to back.
upset by that.
Because I think this stuff like this should be shot back to back, and studios shouldn't be hoping on it to make money to make a part two. And here's also the problem where they kind of shot themselves in the foot. This movie is expensive as hell. Well,
You know what?
well,
I'm
I mean, it's not
actually
as expensive because
it's
Jungle
cheaper than I
Cruise,
thought.
Jungle Cruise is more
Yeah,
expensive than this.
yeah. 160 million. Obviously, that's a buttload of money, but it's cheaper than I thought. Like I think
I was
they had to have used their budget really
I
effectively.
was
I
gonna
think.
say for the scale, and
Mhm.
again outside of that one battle scene, like especially with the visual effects and the CG, like being
Mhm.
so good, like
Yeah,
that is honestly kind
yeah.
of surprising. You would have
To
expected
be
at least 200 for
mhm.
this movie.
Space
to
Jam
be
2 had a budget of 150 million. So it's not
okay.
the
Yeah,
same, but
that's
it's
insane.
very close.
Yeah. To be a movie that has the scale and the reliance obviously on visual effects that it is, like it's a gorgeous movie. To be so
Oh yeah.
gorgeous and everything to look so good, to be only $165 million. I mean, I think I don't think they were rolling around in cash. I think they had to use that very wisely and very effectively.
But
Um,
if anything, I think that may help fund a sequel because it's like, hey, we managed to pull off this giant scale the first time
yeah.
with a lower budget, and it seems like that maybe they might be getting some of that back. And I know
Hmm.
they've even admitted that with this one they're not even looking at like profits for it, which is
Hmm.
again another kind of exciting thing about this for once.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah. I mean I would be really surprised. I'd be astonished if they don't make part two because they made their money back. I don't know how much profit they'll make on this film. It may not be a lot or as much as they'd want, but it has made its budget back, and I think that's the most
yeah.
important part. I think if it didn't even make its budget, no way in hell they'd greenlight a sequel. But they said they're taking a lot more into account, and also they released it on HBO Max at the same time. I will be very surprised if we don't get a sequel.
I mean, even the higher ups pretty much said like again, as you already mentioned, like they were looking at HBO numbers too
Hmm.
to help with.
Yeah,
But then the fact that they pretty much almost kind of said that they're gonna do a sequel, even if it's
yeah.
not greenlit, because they basically said like the movie says itself, it's not a finished movie. So
Hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
I
one of the
just don't
CEOs
understand why they
said
didn't let
like,
him shoot back to back. They should have let him shoot back to back.
yeah,
Very frustrating.
it's weird. Uh I just wish it was back to back. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
Characters. Gotta give a shout out to the MVP Duncan Idaho.
Yeah. Jason
Jason
Momoa did.
Momoa.
I mean, he did essentially play Jason Momoa. It's not like he was doing anything different, but the character. It wasn't like out of place either. Like I'm
It
pretty sure
was
that's
a
what the.
calmer Jason Momoa. It was pretty calm.
Yeah, he
but
was
it was
calmer.
like, exactly the character's purpose in the story, it just really fit his personality. You
Yeah,
know, like it does.
exactly.
The casting was honestly just spot on. Honestly,
Unreal.
like
I I have never seen a Timothy Chalamet film before. I've never seen him in anything before. I wasn't really excited by his casting because I'm never
Josh
interested in any
Brolin
of the movies he
as
makes.
Gurney.
But he did a great job. Josh
Patrick
Brolin
Stewart.
also.
Patrick Stewart played Gurney in the David Lynch version.
That's kind of odd.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's not really the same. I don't know. It's not a role I would
Gurney's
imagine
still
is.
alive.
You
Oh,
son of a gun. No, I'm kidding. I already knew that. No, we
I
didn't see him die. So, like, we saw him run off to battle and nothing else. So I assumed anyways.
that was the other thing I was like interested to see because I did notice like we didn't see him die, but I thought it was kind of just like
Well,
just the way they kind of said everyone was dead. I just kind of assumed
if
maybe
this
he
movie
had
would
an
have just ended
off-screen
on
death.
part one, we could have just assumed that he was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. We probably should talk about the elephant in the room as well, which is the an extended version that we are likely never to get. Unfortunately, there are scenes. I don't know exactly what or how much they
I'll
cut.
look
I
forward
do
to
know.
watching the deleted scenes on my Blu-ray copy of it. That's it.
I sure hope they include them, and I'd edit a cut together myself if they do that, but don't release a director's cut, because there is a scene like I'm very surprised that they wouldn't do a director's cut extended version when there are what I would think would be important scenes, like with the doctor.
UA?
There's apparently a scene they cut, Dr. Yue and Jessica, what's her face's character. That's not her first name, is
Lady
it?
Jessica, that's her name.
Lady Jessica, that's a character. Yeah, there's a scene between the two of them where you learn about Yue and his wife and stuff like that. Stuff I've heard is that's what I've heard is the most glaring omission from the movie, compared to the book. Is he's much more of a character in the book, and
Yeah.
that
I
helps a
mean-
lot with his betrayal and decision. So why would they not, if that scene exists, why are we not getting an extended cut with scenes
Yeah.
like that?
But if we
It's a
would've-
long movie. I don't fault them for the things they had to take out, but I would love to see an extended version.
I would like to see it. I would love to see. I would like to see it, but I think this movie's just the right timing. I think Blade Runner is the film where we could have seen more.
I do not know that an extended version would be the definitive version of the film. A lot of movies come out with it. You're like, oh, I really want to see an extended version of this. You hear about the things they cut, and then you're like,
there's
okay,
mostly a
well,
reason
now I
something
actually
hits
understand
the-
why they cut it.
There's mostly a reason something hits the cutting floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I think of is the Rogue cut of Days of Future Past, where they're like, Rogue was in the director's. They released a version of the film with Rogue in it that did not. None of Rogue wasn't in the main film at all. So it's an entire extra character and scenes with her. And so people are like, what the heck? Yeah, it doesn't. So you go back and watch that cut, and you're like, oh, I actually understand why they cut this film. Like, it seems really weird on the front end that they delete an entire important character from the movie, but then you watch it and you're like, oh, I get it. It doesn't add anything. It didn't need to be here. So, I can't say that wouldn't be the case for Dune, but I'd like to see it nonetheless. I will be content with the film we have regardless.
I think, again, for me personally, I think I want to see the second part first before I even start considering like definitive or extra cuts, because like you never, well, maybe obviously characters like Dr. Yue, like that does sound like maybe an important scene they should have added, but like, again, I'm more interested to see how the story as a whole plays out before I really start considering like all these other cuts and other things left and added in, and who knows what else.
Stellan Skarsgård, who played Baron Harkonnen. There was an interview where he said he wanted more nude scenes. So maybe we could get a 4-hour cut of just nude.
Yeah, Baron. Where's my nude Baron cut?
He's just floating around nude.
Yeah, it just farts.
Yeah, but back to characters. Okay, here's one thing I really loved about this movie is Oscar Isaac's Duke Leto, and the relationship with his son. Like, it was extremely refreshing to me to see specifically the line that will always resonate with me is that, be all of these things or be none of them, you'll still be the only thing I needed you to be, which is my son. And I'm like, I love this. I love how he didn't have a father pushing him towards anything. It was just like, yeah, do whatever you want. I'll be your father and I'll care either way. It's like, I really like that.
Try it this once, and if you don't like it, I won't force it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call their relationship great because we don't see much of it. Because, spoiler, he dies halfway through,
I felt they may not have a ton of screen time, but I thought like I felt a lot from it. Like there was a lot more conveyed than the time they shared on screen.
If that scene wasn't there, then yes, it would be very disappointing. But I think by leaving that scene in, I think that was exactly kind of what we needed, especially since he does die like halfway through.
Yeah.
But
that's the saddest thing about watching the David Lynch version is I knew Oscar Isaac was going to die.
Yeah. Well, and you can feel it in the film. Like, it's not completely out of nowhere. Yeah, the main hero's dad dies. halfway through, of course, but
If anything, it was that line you mentioned where he said, like, the only thing I need you to be was my son. That was the second I was like, oh, he's dead. Okay.
yeah,
The second he
yeah,
admits to his son he loves him, that's the
yeah,
second we know he's dead.
There's also the
100%.
scene where where he's not specifically asking Lady Jessica about the safety of his son, but he's asking the Ben Gesserit,
Hmm. Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
and yeah, oh yeah, and one thing
Cold,
I
but
really liked, I remarked in the group about how this movie subverted my expectations quite a bit. It took me to places I wasn't really expecting. I never quite knew where things were going, and they said, somebody kind of mocked that of like, wow, you didn't know the main hero's dad was going to die and he was going to be this for these people and blah blah blah. The typical tropey stuff that was still present in this film. But I'll elaborate on exactly how that kind of subverted my expectations is because, yeah, the building blocks were there in a lot of things, but it's the ways they went about it and slight differences they made that really kept me guessing a lot. One thing was Duke Leto's death. He didn't just die from a knife to that back. He had he had the whole scene with the doctor and the poison tooth and got to poison the bear, and I wasn't expecting any of that. I thought he was just going to die in the hallway.
Yeah, I don't think we got that in the David Lynch version, I think.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a pretty cool addition.
Oh, it's like, wow, they let this dude suicide himself. That is hardcore.
If anything, that is something I also like to Dr. Yue is like he's gonna be like the person who betrays them for his own like his obviously because of his wife. But I like that even when he was betraying them, he was like, "Look, I didn't want to do this, so I'm gonna give you an edge up on them just in case, to show like this wasn't personal." And I really like that.
Yeah, yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, definitely, I agree. The scene with also the slight there's those slight differences in a character like Duncan Idaho. He's, the brash, probably compulsive action hero dude, but one of his I think it was his second scene, if not second. No, I think it was his third scene. Is when he's introducing the leader of the Who's-a-What's. It's the Sand People. I'm just gonna call it the Fremen. When he's introducing the leader of the Fremen, and he's the one that's like, no, hold on, like this is their culture. Like, this means respect from them. This will mean respect to them from us. That kind of thing. Not normally a side you see from that character trope. So it's a lot of little things like that added a lot of uniqueness and a lot of life to this universe. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it is just nice because it makes them feel like people, Like, obviously,
it does. Everyone feels like people here.
Yeah, like they have their slight story / character trope, but that's not their only thing. Like they show growth, they show different sides to them. Whether it's like, oh, the person who betrays the main characters, it's not just selfishness or whatever, and it's not only because he's being held hostage. It's like, yes, I will betray you, but I'll give you this. Or you have your big like meathead soldier guy who comes back. He's like, actually, I learned a lot about these people. Like, here's what you should do to, show that we respect each other. And it is nice.
One of my favorite characters in this film, funny enough, is the Emperor, a character we don't even come close to seeing. We learn so much about the Emperor in this film, just from what he does, from his actions as relayed to by other characters. I think that's really cool.
They start off a scene in the David Lynch. They start off the film, the David Lynch version, with some poem spoken by the Emperor's daughter, and then we go to a scene with the Emperor. So
really,
I think it was played by Max von. No, Max von Sydow played someone else in the David Lynch version. But yeah, we see him in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, and now I don't know if you see the Emperor in the book or not. The Emperor is obviously not a character. Shut up, you idiot. I don't know if we read the Emperor in the book at all, but he's obviously not a character we need to see in this movie at all. The Baron, fills that role of, the weirdo, mysterious, sitting in his throne room villain. It would be very redundant to have the Emperor there as well, whatever he looks like. But so even though it's neat to have the ruler of the galaxy not being the main villain, the Harkonnens are really entirely their own thing. They're not just pawns of the Emperor. I mean, you can argue everybody is to a degree, but they're not just like the Emperor standing army. But the Emperor is here. He's doing things. He's puppeting strings. But then you also had the Bene Gesserit doing stuff, and you've also got the Harkonnens doing their own thing. And
I'm very interested in seeing what they are doing in the
what
sequel.
a cool faction. I didn't know anything. I didn't know they were going to exist when I went into this movie, and I'm like, that is a really cool added element. Is those characters?
Max von Sydow played Dr. Kynes in.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh. That's right. I do remember hearing now that they changed the character.
The forced diversity here sucked. This movie's ruined because they made Dr. Kynes a black woman. It's just not the same without a white man.
I much prefer my boring David Lynch version.
I said, Taylor, when can we expect your part 1 of 9 3-hour per part video about why Dune is ruined by diversity?
By wokeness, yeah, I'll get right on that.
It all just points to Kathleen Kennedy, to be honest.
Yeah, it's Kathleen Kennedy's fault. Oh, I mean, she's gonna be in every thumbnail, of course.
Yeah.
Here's how Kathleen Kennedy ruined Dune.
This is you on the thumbnail. It's just arms crossed.
That's not me, Ruben. That's my furry persona.
Oh, that's right.
Guys, you heard it here. Taylor admitted he has a furry persona.
No, I shouldn't have done that.
We got this on tape, sucker.
So
not getting edited out.
I'm gonna try to keep this short, but it is going to be long-winded. I'm gonna make the stupid Eternals comparison that every other critic is making right now. But I'm gonna. I do want to compare them in a certain way.
Eternals is pretty much Dune vibes. I mean, Dune is the only film I've seen, but I do think Eternals is giving me Dune vibes.
I mean,
Eternals is giving me Dune vibes. Yeah. And I'm not actually so much comparing the movies. The one thing I'll say regarding Eternals that I've heard from critics is, I've heard complaints of it being a little too dense. You have too many characters to follow. There's a big world with lots of lore and mythos and stuff, and it's a little too much for audiences to digest.
The third act shits the bed.
I do not know. I haven't actually heard that either way. But so the thing about that is from what little I have now read of comics Eternals is that's true of them in the comic books is there is a just ridiculous amount of lore and mythos required to understand these characters. So recently I read a Eternals comic, the one that's currently ongoing. It started earlier this year. It ran about 6 issues until the summer. It took a break. They've done a couple one-shots before the movie, and then it will continue with the same writer and artist. It's extremely good. It's very, very good. It's written by a very good writer, and they handle this in a very interesting way. There's so much, again, lore and information and really into the weeds stuff that you have to know to understand these characters in the story, but it explains it expertly. It's some of the best exposition work I've ever seen in a comic book. For the most part, the story is narrated by what is called the Machine. The Machine is basically Earth and kind of runs everything, and it's intrinsic to the Eternals. And it's narrating the series, and it's also breaking. It's supposed to be neutral and cold, but you're seeing this kind of personality seep through, which it will apologize for sometimes when it happens, but it is directly addressing you, the audience, and narrating the story. It will kind of dump information this way in a very interesting way. Apparently, if critics are to be trusted, which normally is no,
only the audience could trust us on delivering the best experience, guys.
The movie will have the same issue of needing the audience to understand a lot of stuff, and critics have apparently found that to be a little too much. On the inverse side, Dune, which is also something that everyone has regarded as borderline impossible to adapt because of how dense the book is and how much there is you have to understand to this world. I thought the movie did it very, very well. There are scenes that are technically on a technical level exposition dumps, but it's done in a very good way. I think that you have these, hollow vids they're watching, these instructional videos. So it's done, whatever way you're going to slice it, the movie has to dump exposition on you to a degree. It just kind of has to. And I like the way it does it because it feels very natural. It never feels shoehorned in. It never feels like they're pausing the movie to tell you something you're going to need to know. You're learning things alongside the characters in a very natural way, and that's something I liked about the movie a lot.
Yeah. All right. I think we should just go over to our verdicts of Dune. Does anyone have anything to say before we go to verdicts?
I just wanted to again quickly praise. Like this is obvious. This was obvious from the trailers, but man, the production value on this, just like, oh my gosh, just the design of everything. Like whether it was like the still suits or the armor that that Paul's family wore when they kind of arrived on the planet, or like the ships, and just everything just has this like it really does just live up to its scale, and it makes it feel like just very real and tangible without doing like anything super wacky or super sci-fi. Like it's very grounded, very simple, but super effective.
Dune is in that kind of world where it is kind of grounded because in the world of Dune they banned the making of artificial intelligence or computers in general. So what we're left is, it's still kind of futuristic. Like we get these shields, but it's like more so, motor hardware. If you know what I'm talking about,
Because I thought it was interesting when they would show like bits of the inside of the ships, and they had these still very like analog kind of readouts, like you see on modern planes. I just thought that was like a very nice choice, and it now that I now have that context, that's super cool, just on a world building level, like that it was intentional.
Yeah.
This is one of Hans Zimmer's best scores.
Yes,
the last thing I have to say is the score.
I was about to say we almost forgot to talk about Hans Zimmer's score, but he released 3 versions of this score on Spotify.
Really?
We got the sketchbook version, then we have the original soundtrack version, and then we have the art and style of Dune, which is a companion piece to the art book of Dune.
Interesting.
So we got about like 3 or 4 hours of Dune soundtrack
on.
That's nice.
On Spotify.
So. Hans Zimmer is the quintessential Hollywood composer that everybody knows, right? So I think it's very easy to fall into like a
massive fan of Dune. So that's why he rejected Tenet and did this.
I think it's easy to fall into a place of like, oh, Hans Zimmer's overrated. There are better composers, blah, blah, blah. I think the reason Hans Zimmer is not overrated is because of how well he is able to change or throw out and find a new style for different films. We got into this with the Inception era of, oh, that's a Hans Zimmer soundtrack. You have your loud blomps and that kind of thing. But he's capable of so much more, and in fact does that in many movies. And Dune is one of them. It's a very unique soundtrack.
I have found that it depends on the project he's working on, because this is something you can tell he cares about, and when he cares about it, like he lives up to his name. But the problem is everyone's trying to get him, so most of the time he's not really caring, and he's just throwing out whatever, and just having basically his co-ghostwriters do it for him.
He cares about Dune, but what I know is with No Time to Die, he didn't care that much.
I like the No Time to Die soundtrack.
It's fine, but it isn't top tier Hans Zimmer. It just isn't that great.
I'd actually place that upper mid tier Hans Zimmer. I did. I guess it hasn't stuck with me, but I feel like I remember really liking that score. I felt the same way with Blade Runner 2049. I had to look up to double check at one point it was Hans Zimmer, because he was capable of making not a Hans Zimmer score, but a Blade Runner score. So I think you're right. It really does just care about his level of passion in the project. But this was definitely something, again, there's some things, if I hear a loud womp, I'm going to be like, oh, that's a Hans Zimmer score. Nothing about this movie had anything in it where I'm like, oh, that's a Hans Zimmer score.
All right, let's go over to verdicts. Tyler, let's hear your verdict on Dune and your score.
My verdict again, it's I really did enjoy it. It is not a film for everyone. It's a big, slow sci-fi epic. I am here for it, not everyone is. It's I do have some problems with it, but again, it's so hard for me to tell, and like the number I will give it is definitely not my final one, cuz again, it's only half a story. So
Mhm.
once I have the rest of the context of this story, I will be able to come back and fully appreciate it. And that is the only downside to this movie for me personally. It's just it's set up and we don't have the payoff yet, so it's really hard to judge it on a full scale. So for
Mhm.
now, I'm going to give it like a 7.5 only just because we don't have the full thing yet. And I'm sure once we get a second part, it will definitely go up. There is so much I love about this movie, but yeah, it's in a weird place for me right now.
Damn. For me, I really enjoyed Dune upon first watch in cinemas. I think I gave it an 8 when I first watched it. Then I rewatched it today, and I think it holds up on my TV very well. I think it is a cinema movie. Wait, if you have the opportunity to watch this in the cinema, you go take that opportunity. Watching it at home is fine, but if you get easily distracted, cinema is the easy way to go. I enjoyed Dune. I think it's really good. The acting is good. I really like the storytelling. I just like big scope sci-fi epics. This will be well, I wouldn't say along with Lord of the Rings on the top, but this would be something that I probably go back to very often. Um, I just think it's fantastic. The score is really good. I like
Mhm.
the atmosphere. One thing I don't like so much is the color grading of the film. I think Arrakis kind of looks cold. I think it needs to look warm because at one point they say
Mhm.
2 hours in the sun is enough to kill you, but it looks very cold on the planet. So that's
Mhm.
kind of my only complaint. But when I rewatched it today, I scored it at a 9.
It is a strong 9 to a light 9.5 for me. When you hype up a movie for so long, it's either going to not even come close to living up to your expectations, but if it's going to be everything you wanted, and that's, you know, 2 years of wanting something to be of building something up in your mind, and that payoff is enormous. That being everything I wanted is enormous for me, and it was. So most I can say about the film is it's everything I wanted from a project like this, from a Villeneuve film, from a big grandiose sci-fi film, from a adaptation of one of the most influential science fiction books of all time. It's everything I wanted, and yeah, a lot of it will hinge on a part two and how well they fit together, and R is a complete package. Um, but this movie, I really loved it. I loved it. It's definitely a 9.5 for me.
All right, cool. I guess everyone. Well, I know someone that didn't really like it, but that's a shame. Sucks to be you, I
There
guess.
are yeah, real quick, I would say, like, I understand people not liking the movie. I think you're wrong if you're going to try and say it's bad, but I think it's perfectly understandable. Some of it is pretty slow, some of it is pretty dense. I don't see a lot of criticisms in some of these things, but I do understand people not liking it. Absolutely, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But
That's it. My
big worms,
yeah.
Big orcs,
Big
big
worms.
worms.
big worms.
My final note is honestly, again, I'm more just interested in part two. I think once we have a part two, my opinions on this will go up, and I think this really does have like the potential to be this generation's Lord of the Rings if it's kind of not already. So yeah, I am excited for more. I'm really interested to see where this goes. I'm interested to see how this holds up once we do have more parts to this story. So yeah.
Uh, as far as comparisons to Lord of the Rings go, too, I think this is a movie that, like Lord of the Rings, will visually hold up extremely well going
For sure.
forward. Obviously, this one is much more reliant on CGI than Lord of the Rings was. There's probably less practical effects at play, though I do think there were a lot here. But I think it's going to hold up, 20, 30 years down the line. I still think we're
Without a
going to think
doubt.
this movie looks incredible.
Yeah. All right. Let's just wrap it up here. Next week, hopefully, if I remember to record or people won't cancel. We'll be doing Venom and Venom Not to Be Carnage.
Very
Venom.
excited. I will be there for that one. Absolutely.
Venom. Venom.
Venom.
Venom.
Yeah, till next week, guys.